All right, I'm thrilled to bring in Ben Brust because I need Ben. I'll be honest, this is a compliment to Ben. I feel like Ben's era of Badger basketball is the last time I was truly excited for college basketball in general and Badger basketball. Obviously, Ben's Final Four team, then the team following up there. There was a little bit of residual, a couple players hung around after that, but realistically, it's been a while since I've been amped for Badger basketball, and that has nothing to do with Greg Gard. Maybe it's the overall state of college basketball, but the Badgers, they're winning. They're 12-3. They knocked off a Rutgers team that was not rolling with their top NBA talent players. But, Ben, how you doing? And get me hyped about Badger basketball.
Well, I just want to know if you've even watched them play, because you are talking about the Wisconsin Badger basketball team like it's the same way that they've played the last 4 years.
No,
and
they're not playing that way.
Absolutely not playing that way.
They're not.
It's actually shocking. So something I do that's very fun, I've done it the last 8 years, is I get together with two buddies of mine, and the guy who runs this draft auction-style Calcutta, you take the top 40 Ken Pom ranked teams, and you get to bid on them, and we did our research yesterday. And it was so intriguing to see the metrics of the Wisconsin Badgers in comparison to what I've looked at the last 7 years in this nerdy, dorky spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it's not just going to be about what I talk about from a statistics standpoint. It translates to what you're watching on the basketball court. Somehow, some way, the Wisconsin Badgers are the 12th best offensive efficient team in the country according to Ken Pom. The cool part about that is there has been times when the Badgers have been an efficient offensive basketball team, but you look at that tempo number and you're like, whoa, they play slow. Every year I look at this spreadsheet for the Wisconsin Badgers, they're anywhere from 230 to 260. They're in the bottom 30 of tempo, or excuse me, 330 to 360. They're that far back in tempo. This year, they're like playing at a tempo where I had to like refresh my screen. I'm looking Wisconsin. I go through their offensive rating. I'm like, okay, 12. Yeah, they play good offense. The thing that does scare me though, Jim, is seeing 80 on defensive rating. That's 36th out of the top 40 Ken Pom teams in defense. But when you look at pace and I see 168, that is half of what the tempo has been for the Wisconsin Badgers. So if you want to be excited, you have to embrace the fact that Greg Gard brought in Kirk Penny, brought in a bunch of guys to go all in on making this offense more dynamic. Do I get a little scared that they can't get a stop and can't guard a soul? Does it frustrate me as a former Badger sometimes watching them play defense? Yes, but I'm not the coach, and they're doing something different, and they're playing faster. Forget Tanji. Blackwell is the guy. Blackwell is the dude. Blackwell is a dude, and he will continue to prove that throughout the grueling Big Ten season, because as they've won their last two games, Blackwell has been the guy that has been going and will continue to go. Tanji, great story, right? The transfer, great start to the season. He's not a bad player, but the guy is John Blackwell on this team. He can score mid-range, tough threes, get to the rim. He's aggressive. He'll get offensive rebounds. He'll get to the foul line. They have a different style that if you're looking to be excited, you just have to open your eyes and accept that they're doing something different, and the metrics and the product on the court will tell you that it's doing something different.
Yes, and I fully admit this isn't a guard problem. Part of this is with college basketball. Part of it's just kind of the Badgers have let me down so much. For me, as more of a casual college basketball fan, it's NBA guys, it's success in March. Those are the two things that get me most excited. And honestly, now with some of the stuff with the transfer portal, like I'm done watching Max Klesmit and Steven Krall play basketball. Like Nolan Winter, Blackwell, Tanjay, even McGee to an extent, they get me excited. So I'm not saying they're not a good team, but it's just more, and they are playing more exciting basketball. But just in general, I'm just struggling. Maybe it's more of a nihilistic look for me that I don't have that. They've had Johnny Davis. They've had some great players, or they were more successful in March. So now it's like, great.
And when you saying you didn't enjoy watching Johnny Davis play is crazy. He went on the road at Michigan State, Purdue, all these tough environments where the Badgers only won four times in the last 60 years at Mackey Arena, and he put up 37 or 30 whatever, double-double against Jaden Ivey, an NBA pro, who just got hurt.
And Davis is an NBA guy.
I Now, what happened to his shot and everything, that's not what we're here to discuss.
No,
we're here to discuss
he's an
the
NBA
Badgers.
guy, though. He was that guy.
I can't help you with the NBA thing, but what I can have a conversation about is the same frustration that I have that when I'm on the air on Kyle, Brust, and Ortman or talking to Badger basketball fans. I understand the March thing. There's no getting around it. Since 2017, they haven't made it to the second weekend. We can talk. I see all the statistics. They put out Greg Gard's winning percentage in the Big Ten and how great it is in comparison to legendary coaches over his tenure. He's got a great winning percentage in the Big Ten. I get all that. He won 2 Big Ten championships, 2020, and then with Johnny Davis. They won 8 games to get a share in 2020, and obviously what Johnny Davis did was spectacular. Chucky Hepburn, thank you for the bank shot. Those are great things, but ultimately, I understand it. Fans do not care enough for it to propel the Badgers into, they're having a wonderful Greg Gard era. Fair or unfair, it's the same way we judge Green Bay Packers. It's to fans, it's how far do we go in the playoffs, right? Matt LaFleur has a wonderful regular season record. Who cares if he hasn't been to a Super Bowl, right? It's great. You want a good coach, but is he the guy that you trust in those late game situations and whatnot? It's the same way that you can look at the Badgers from a postseason performance standpoint. I think that Greg Gard's done a very good job. He's a very good coach. But if you can't win in March, guess what? The diehard Badger fans probably like, you know what? Gard's doing a good job. The ones that tune in like yourself in March are like, here we go again. And so I do agree that it's going to be interesting to see if the way that they're playing will translate to greater success in March, because that is the one thing that Greg Gard needs to prove to the Badger fan base, casual and diehard, that he can get it done. And he had it at his fingertips. You were in Milwaukee, Iowa State, right? Like Johnny Davis didn't play well.
Game.
Brad Davison, you have to win that game. You can't lose to James Madison, no matter what the situation. If Stores quit, you have to find a way to the second weekend. What I do like is there is a buy-in from this team, right? The guys that are all playing. There's a buy-in. Tanji's on his last year. Blackwell loves being a Badger. He's getting opportunities to continue to grow as a Badger. Winter's got a bright future and playing well as a current Badger. McGee comes in and brings energy. I'm kind of with you with Klesmit. I don't love the hero ball late. It's like, what are we doing here? Why are you trying to be Brad Davison? That drives me a little crazy. But ultimately, you have buy-in and you have belief. The questions that I have right now for this team is when you look at, because we're going to get into some nerdy stuff, and you're going to start seeing it all over the broadcast as it has into tournament time and these Big Ten games. What are their quad one victories, right? Right now they're 2-3 in quad one. And it was Pittsburgh and Arizona. Arizona, pretty flawed. I think their quad one record is atrocious, and Pittsburgh's an okay team. But since then, they had then lost to Michigan and Illinois to start the Big Ten play. And those are 2 teams that are top 20 in KenPom. Now, you beat Rutgers, you beat Iowa. Good, you're supposed to do that. I really want to see this team start beating some of these high-quality teams because I think they're a good team, but I don't know if they're a great team. They're a good team, don't know if they're a great team. Because guess what? Against Michigan and Illinois, that 80 in KenPom rankings of defense showed up against those high-quality opponents. So I give credit to Gard and the staff for changing, playing faster. I was at the Arizona game for the Final Four reunion weekend, and I'm sitting next to Josh Gosser, and we couldn't believe the buckets that Arizona were getting. We're like, wait, he just got the ball on the right wing and just drove and made a layup? We're like, make them change directions, wall up. Where's the defense? And I remember in the last 4 minutes, they're up 12. Are they going to work the ball around? Nope. They were in double bonus. They attacked. Now, playing up and attacking is one thing. Getting stops in key situations, that's going to be the thing that I'm looking for me to know if this team's going to progress as a real threat to be a tournament team.
And I'm with you. Greg Gard has done a great job, not only coaching his team, but finding players that fit the team. I'm 100% with you on that. And it's honestly more the emotional buy-in that it's just been so long, as you touched on before. And Badger fans don't need a Sweet 16. They don't need an Elite 8, a Sweet 16, and everyone's going to be happy and really honestly love this team and be fully back in. But I think there's kind of an emotional standoff point. But I think a lot of Badger fans, the Packers season, whenever it ends, then you just jump into Badger basketball too. I think there's a little bit of that. But with one guy that is driving me insane, and I think he drives Gard insane at times with some of the comments, is the Steven Kroll. And I don't even know how important he is in a tournament. Big guys really have losing, even in college basketball, their importance. But the fact that he comes and goes as far as...
He can't be this old to come and go. That's the only thing that I agreed with when I was listening to the show while I was waiting to go is he cannot come and go. He has to, you have to be an upperclassman. You have to produce night in and night out. Can't be looking at the box score and saying, oh, he was 2 of 6 from the field and had 4 rebounds and got into foul trouble. Like, you've been around long enough. You need to produce at his position and with what he's capable. Because when you show things in flashes like he has, even yesterday, 8 for 11, like, you got to continue to produce, because I understand the big man isn't as important, but if you have a big man that's been around that long, you need to utilize that and have that as a reliability factor for your team, as something you can touch the post, get some assists from. And when he does it great. And when he disappears, you can't have it from a guy that's been around that long. And he's a major topic of conversation amongst former Badgers that I played with. Yeah. I'll just say that. There are some group texts in which the Kroll conversation gets brought up a lot. And it's because of the coming and going, because of the how have you been around this long and not gotten yourself to a place where you're consistently helping the team night in and night out.
With the team that does have me excited about what they could do in March is Blackwell and Tanjay. Like, those are the two where I say the guard play, and you guys had it when you guys made the run a couple times. Obviously, you and Gasser and a bunch of other players out there. They could put the ball on the floor. Guard play seems to be the separator of teams in March. Obviously, you need those big athletic forwards are good too, and I think Nolan Winter could be helpful, but those are the two. So I guess, am I correct in the assessment that Blackwell, and you've really been pushing him, and I think he's been playing great, and I think he's the one, if they're going to break this curse of losing in that first weekend, him and Tanji are the two that are going to break that curse.
100%. It's gonna be fair or unfair. I mean, obviously it's a team game, and you got to find different ways to win, but like, ultimately, you need that one guy that's going to be like, all right, I'm the guy you go to, and I'm going to get the bucket. And whether it was the point guard in the Bose systems, or even when guard had Koenig and then Trice and then Johnny Davis, like, you need a guy. And last year, like, Storr came and gone, took some bad shots, came out because of decision making. Hepburn didn't end up becoming the offensive threat that many wanted him to be as the point guard. Blackwell is going to have to be the guy, and I think he is that guy. I think he is that guy that you can say, hey, we need a bucket. Find a way to go get a bucket, whether it's getting to the foul line, finishing the rim, creating your own shot. He hit he's hit a couple of threes in these last 2 games where it's like, I question that shot, but he's hitting them, and he's hitting them with confidence, and it seems as if it's something that is sustainable, right? He's a shot maker, not a shot taker. Storr was a shot taker. Blackwell is a shot maker. And that, to me, is a huge key sign as to how you can have that offensive tournament success. Now can guard in a short period of time, because that's the challenge with the transfer portal for the Wisconsin system, in my opinion, is on the defensive end. How do you get them to buy into the defensive principles without the old school, learn as a freshman, get some time as a sophomore, then you click and you got it as a junior? Are you able to expedite the defensive rules and the defensive needs that you have for each guy to provide for the team? And that is my question mark, because I really do believe they have the scoring and the guys that can consistently bring you offense. I was questioning it, but I've seen enough now to believe in it. It's that defensive side of the ball, because I really think they can score, and they can score against anybody, but can they get a stop against, like, a dude? Like, when we were watching Arizona, they're just poorly coached. They're very poorly coached. But they had 4 John Blackwells.
Yeah.
And you're going to run into better coached teams with 4, when I say Blackwells, I just mean guys,
yes.
like dudes who can play.
Yep.
Are you able to get a stop against 3 or 4 guys in the tournament who, doesn't matter who has it, one of them can go make a play and score?
Let's look at football. I've heard you on KBN, which is coming up here at 2 o'clock across ESPN Wisconsin. You seem worried about Badger football, and I don't blame you. I do think I've tempered my expectations for the team. I do like some of the margin sort of moves. I mean, I don't know if a new offensive coordinator is margins, but Jeff Grimes and the offense he's going to run looks more like an offense that would be successful at Wisconsin. They're trying to find that, and I know Brad Nortman's talked about it, but I think these players coming up a level or coming to the Power 5 is the new maybe walk-on for them, that you might not be able to chase some of these big names. Because honestly, I feel like their biggest failures is when they try to chase someone from a big-time school and like, oh, well, he'll succeed here because now he gets snaps. I honestly would rather let's bring in some players who have something to prove. And to that point, like their D-line, the recruits they brought in, the average height and weight of them is 6'4", 292, which makes me think defensively they're remembering, and this is my overall theory, Ben, with Badger football, is that when they recruited and coached, they were trying to keep up with the Nittany Lions and the Ducks and Ohio State, and they forgot they have to beat Iowa and Nebraska and Minnesota, and they kind of lost their way of what Big Ten football is. And I think they're recruiting and changing their coaching staff a little bit to be able to beat some of those teams that they're probably in best position to beat, and then hopefully over the years build up enough talent to go knock out the best teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head there. Like you're like at this point, you're hitting like the quick reset button. There's no full reset button. You have to do everything in your power to make sure that you come up with a plan that's going to equate to us not losing by 20 plus to Iowa, Minnesota, and, I'm blanking, Nebraska, right? Like those 3 teams, you cannot go 0-3 against them. That's unacceptable. It just is. And so I'm not saying that I'm going to also just be like, you know what? I love the Grambling State guy. Like when you read the size of the defensive line on average, I think you guys said it was 6'5", 290 or whatever it is. All great. But does it translate in 1 year? Because the walk-on way was the same way I was talking about the defensive method for Wisconsin Badgers on basketball. It was you get in as a freshman, you get some more time as a sophomore, and then you hit the ground running as a junior. And if you skip that process a little quicker, you get in as a sophomore, right? Are you able to expedite the getting the lower level guys that will have opportunity and compete and take you above where you've been the last 2 years? That is my biggest question. My biggest question is of who you're bringing in, of where they came from. If it's a MAC school or whatever, can they expedite the success of those players in a short amount of time? Because nobody in this fan base will accept the results of what this team had against certain teams this past season if it happens again.
Another weird thing, and it's not apples to apples as far as winning. We talked about with basketball, but at least basketball, Johnny Davis. I need to see some actual draftable, like multiple Badgers. You get this sort of one-off now, and again, under the Paul Chryst, Brett Bielema, even Gary Anderson era, there was five undrafted free agents, maybe 5 draft picks, and the league was full of Badgers making a nice name for themselves. And now those guys are aging out. Like Zeitler's going to retire soon. Watt's out. Like Russell Wilson might be on his way. Like those guys are on their way out, and they just don't. Yeah. Like they need more talent. The all you can do when you look at Fickell, and it's not even with the Badgers, you go, oh, look, Sauce Gardner played from Cincinnati. Like I want Sauce Gardner at Wisconsin. Like that's the next step they need.
Yeah, I had the same realization too, Jim, as I saw Van Ginkel having a season, right? Like all these different guys, and I'm like, I'm watching Sunday Night Football, and both teams had, when they do the intro with the Andrew Van Ginkel, Wisconsin, Kevin Zeitler, Wisconsin. I'm thinking to myself, in the next 5 years, am I going to be watching Sunday Night Football? Is there anybody going to say their name and say Wisconsin next to it? And I have very little faith that we're going to see that at all. Yeah. And that is the scary thing about the direction of the program. Not that they need to get 4 or 5-star guys to do that, because that's not what the Badgers did in the past, and they were able to get guys on the NFL and produce in the NFL to a starter and high caliber level. Zach Bond. I mean, like you name it. I like, again, I know it's different, but you got to find a way to create a team in which there's an identity of like, it's never going to be like it was. I'm never going to be at Camp Randall and be like, all right, they're running the 3-4. Sure, they gave up 20, 30 yards. Now it's at our side of the 35, our side of the 40, and it's 3rd and 6. I used to love it. I'd be like, oh, here we come. Here we come. It's going to get sacked and punt it to us, and the under's going to hit. Now it's just wait for the disaster.
Yes.
And so whatever that version of Wisconsin is moving forward, they got to find that version. They got to find the system that proves that if you come here, you will have success in a team, and it will translate to what the NFL is looking for.
It's funny you mentioned Van Ginkel because I was watching that Sunday night game, and then the Bear-Packer game, they had Sanborn and Edwards, 2 former Badgers, starting for Chicago. So it's just those guys were not super highly recruited guys, and I believe both those two were undrafted or very low drafted. I know Sanborn was undrafted. Van Ginkel maybe 4th or 5th round with the Dolphins, and obviously Minnesota now. So it's just that tough and dependable and gritty. Like that's what they need back. And Fickell's got to figure it out because I know Rittenberg has him on the hot seat for next year on the ESPN article. So I don't know if that's too early, but I don't think it's out of the question, Ben.
It's not too early because if you don't, again, I know it's boring to say you need to beat Nebraska, Minnesota, and Iowa, but you do because that was the norm. And if you can't at least go back to the norm of beating the teams that are in their same sort of spot as you in terms of recruiting and potential like wins, losses of like 8, 9 wins every year, if you can't be there, then you're not going to be able to last at Wisconsin. And fans are not going to be able to watch Minnesota, Nebraska, and Iowa beat the Badgers and say, you know what, let's run it back. Fine, it was year 2, you're going through transition, but if it happens again, it's unacceptable for a program that has had too much success over the last 20, 30 years.
Ben, I know you got to get ready for your show. Really appreciate you hopping on and talking Badger hoops with us and a little football.
It's fun. I love it.
Awesome. All right, well, you got me excited for Badger basketball. I'm going to get in. I'm going to watch with a little bit more excitement. I won't guard my heart as much. Then maybe they'll do. All I want is a Sweet 16. I don't need anything super special. I just want 2 weekends.
Because once
March
you
Madness.
get to the Sweet 16, what happens?
What do you mean? Like it just feels
you
like
got a shot.
Yes, that's true.
You got a shot.
I just feel like
you have a shot.
Yeah, you do have a shot.
You don't get to the Sweet 16, it just feels blah. You have a shot if you get to the Sweet 16.
Absolutely, I love it. Thanks, Ben.
Later.
All right, that's Ben Brust. He's got me pumped for Badger basketball.